Family, we are back, and I am super excited about the topic we're going to be discussing. It's a hot topic, this idea of navigating our trauma and just what all that looks like. I think many of us have lived through the life unexpectedness, or I don't even know if that's a word, but go with me. There's just some things that happen in life that we didn't see coming, and how we are able to manage that, turn it from misery into ministry, being able to get it from just being a testimony is what we're going to be talking about. And we're theming the topic today from paramedics, I need help, to paradise, being able to see it come to a place where it's beautiful. And I have brought none other than the wellness girl herself. This is a woman that is all things giving the gift of grace to people all around the world. She's a mommy, she's a wife, she is an entrepreneur, she's a boss in every regard. I have my sister, the Brelyn Bowman, on the ones and twos. Sissy, how you doing?
Hi, I am so good and so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, I am excited to have you. And I know you got a lot going on in your world. So tell me what's going on. Give us a quick little life update.
Yes, life update. Children are still all over the place. Marriage is amazing. Ministry is amazing. The Grace Haven is amazing. We're doing pretty well. All is well right now.
Well, you named a lot of things, and I know you got a lot of kids, and I know for the women watching, it could seem like, man, like how's she able to do all that? Does she got extra hours in the day? I want them to, I love you in that you're going to always give it real. Help us understand what you're using to navigate the space of managing all these different hats. Doing it well, maybe not doing it well, doing it crying, sometimes not doing it crying. How's that going for you?
Listen, I think right now I'm in the season of let's just get it done. Let's not focus on how to get there, but let's just get it done, because one day they may have a tantrum. One day they may not have a tantrum. But anyway, we're going to get it done, because this morning we got to school about 30 minutes late, and I was like, but we got there.
We made
so you
it.
got to focus on the positive, because every day is not perfect. I think it's about prioritizing as well. You got to know what to focus on that day. My husband knows if I'm driving him to school, maybe let's not talk about the bills right now. Let's talk about something else, like, because that don't work right here. We need to pray, get her off to school, and figure it out. So you got to learn how to prioritize your day and spend time with God. He'll tell you what to do each day to give you the grace for each day, for sure.
And I love that. I love that the focus is not just on how perfect I got it. So maybe we didn't get to school on time, but we made it, and not discounting, giving ourselves grace in that process to where we counted out like, well, my kids can't go to school because I can't get them there on time, or even speaking negatively to ourselves because we didn't get it done the way in which we expected. Now we can tweak, we can modify and try to do better, but I think grace for the journey is just so crucial. Even in the topic that we're talking about, with going to the place of going from trauma to testimony. Can you talk to me about, just in your own life personally, how have you gotten to the place where you were willing to be able to even share your testimony? Because I know being able to share vulnerabilities and things that we've lived through that may not have been easy can sometimes be very challenging. Can you tell me how you might have got over the fear or even the shame of having to share what you've lived through? And maybe even give us a little snippet of what you've lived through.
When I tell you trauma has hit my house,
I love it.
So many times. I'm like, Lord, you're going to have to get me out of this. But I think I've always decided to live a sacrificial life. Ever since I was a little girl, I've decided that I'm a living sacrifice. So whatever that looks like for the Father, I have been committed to. At permission, I shared that I had a miscarriage, and that was the first time you had even heard it. And I know
literally, I was like, now Brelyn. You're doing a lot.
But in that moment, I knew it wasn't just about me. There's so many women who experience miscarriages and not being able to have children, and so many different other things wrapped in shame. It was like, God, if I could fight the devil back by sharing this, this is what I'm going to do, because you're not going to keep me in a closet. You're not going to put me in a place where I'm isolated, because if you know me, if I go through something like crazy, I may just a little isolate myself just a little bit to get myself together, and I'm coming out. But for a while, that was my safe place to run to, but it was damaging. I was being more damaged in those isolated moments because the enemy just kept attacking me. But when I started to share my testimony and share my stories, I was like, oh, wait, is this what freedom is? Like,
Yes.
is this what permission to live free is? Yes.
Come on.
Because I've decided that it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. And that being the case, I'm going to choose to be free. I mean, fully free, not just sharing. And it's not that when I share, I'm in these, did it on that stage. Y'all saw me. If you listen to the video, I crack a little bit in my voice because I found out Tuesday, I was at the conference Friday, but I was so determined in that moment that I'm not living my life in shame. I don't want to live like that. And I think sometimes many women choose shame over freedom because it's comfortable.
Whoa.
And the more you choose comfortability, the more you're going to live in shame, because that's where the enemy can keep you. And he knows if you stay there, you'll never fulfill your purpose. You'll never fulfill your assignment.
When you talked about that scripture, it was for freedom that Christ set us free. It goes on to say, no longer again to be bound by a yoke of slavery. And I think that many times our isolation and many times our shame can become that yoke, that thing that binds us to the place where we can't live in freedom. And so I think being able to push beyond that and push past that to do something different. I love when you talked about I used to run the isolation, but I found out isolation wasn't quite working for my freedom. So if I want something different, then I'm likely going to have to do something different. And I just think that that's crucial. Now, this was something inside of your testimony that you just shared, even in the thing about miscarriages that maybe some don't know. You wrote a book called No Ring, No Ting, and you actually lived that out in real life. You were actually celibate until you got married. And that's something many people haven't done. But then you talk about having had a miscarriage. And I know as your personal friend that you've had two. Can you talk about the trauma of living through life unexpectancy where you would have never expected to have a miscarriage, especially with the testimony you had? Because I think many times as Christians feel like if we do the thing by God, then there's no way this can touch my house, right? So God owed me just perfect pregnancies and only good things. How do you get to the place where your faith does not fail living through trauma? Where you don't get afraid with having another baby?
You decide not to be spoiled. I had to decide not to be spoiled because God don't owe me nothing.
Whoa. Say that one more time.
God does not owe me a thing. The fact that he sent his son to save my soul is enough. And I don't think we realize as believers that that's enough. Like, that's what he sent for us. Like, how many of us would really give our son to save somebody else?
Probably not.
I mean, Cresswell, not my baby. But when I decided that I wasn't going to be spoiled in my relationship and that he did promise me this, it took me from this is what I deserve to God, this is what you decided to bless me with. So it changed my perspective of what I can get. And that's why you got to stop looking at God as a genie in a bottle. And if he's not enough for you, nothing will ever be enough. Nothing will. And when I got to the place that he was enough and stopped worshiping the promise over the promise keeper, it changed my life. It changed my life. So I remember when I had my first miscarriage and I told him, I said, hey, I wasn't expecting this. I said, it is very difficult to process this. I said, because you go from being pregnant to not. It's no in between, no nothing. I said, so I need help. He said, you can get the help you need. He said, but there's one thing we won't stop doing. And I said, what? He said, that's believing God for the promise that he gave us. And that,
come on here.
It shifted my mindset because, okay, I can cry, I can scream, I can be mad, I could lash out, whatever, but I'm not going to stop believing God for the thing that he promised me. But he also is enough if that's not what comes to pass. So I was settled in knowing he's enough, and I'm settled in knowing, hey, that's a promise he gave me. Let me go after it. So it's not really stopping or just saying, oh, whatever. It's knowing that I can be content in this season because he is faithful to fulfill his word.
Man, so you said a word inside of this thing where you're talking about a very traumatic experience like a miscarriage. You said, but this is what he decided to bless me with. And you said it gave you new perspective. Can you help somebody that might be living through a really hard moment, having navigated some really hard moments yourself, see that even inside of something that may not be packaged in just rainbows and cherries and beauty, that there may also be blessing inside of it? I can definitely say that that's been true for my own life, even speaking with the almost, dying of my child when I'm 20 weeks pregnant, my water breaks and all of this. I've met people I never would have met. I got to know family and even a prophetic call on family's life because they were able to show up for me in a way that they never would have had the opportunity to without the blessing of us having to live through the made away story. So can you kind of talk about the blessing you found and maybe some of the unexpected life happenings for you all?
Yeah, for sure. The beauty in one just being able to conceive, I was overjoyed. I was just overjoyed at the thought of, God, you put life inside of me. And I think that was my biggest blessing of knowing it's possible. We met so many people. We were able to share our story with so many people. I was able to meet so many women that has, been challenged with the same thing, to talk to them. What are you going through? And now we have relationships like this. And one of my friends, before me, she had about 2 or 3 miscarriages. Now she has 3 babies. I have 3 babies. So the beauty in relationship, and I think it comes from being others driven, because you don't get a made away story and it's not others driven. That is focusing on other people. And I took my mind off of myself just to think about, Lord, how many other people are in this space? And I think, again, it's focusing on the promise keeper and knowing that he will fulfill you through everything. But it's also allowing him to shape your perspective in that space and really spending time with him, because he'll show you things that you may have missed just because you're so focused on what you're going through. And I think he just highlighted for me that it's possible and this can happen, and it will happen. Not that it
will happen,
but it will happen. So it's being content in the season that you're in, and knowing that seasons don't last always. So I think that's where I was able to find the beauty. So it's sitting down. Okay, yeah, everything may not look perfect, but write down the things that are going good and focus on gratitude.
Man, the heavy nugget of that it's a season, and that seasons are called seasons on purpose. They change. We have 4 seasons in natural life that remind us that this won't be this way always. But just because I'm experiencing it now don't mean that I'll forever experience that. And you even emphasized a lot, Brelyn, don't let go of promise. That his promises are yes and amen. And if he said it, that he will bring it to pass if that is his word and he's anchored you in that word. So you talked about being others driven, and it brought to mind this question that when it comes to the topic of trauma, many times trauma is associated with other people. Someone touched you, someone mishandled you, someone betrayed you. I think that another topic that is so tied so tightly is forgiveness and the ability to navigate maybe something that has you wronged somebody, or maybe somebody's wronged you, and how you manage what's been done to you or what you've done to somebody, and being able to forgive yourself or even forgive others. How do you feel like the topic of forgiveness marries this topic of trauma?
Well, it is so big because the Bible says that if you don't forgive, that God is unable to forgive you. And I believe first is a trick of the enemy to even have you go through something that traumatic where you have to deal with it, because it can throw your entire life off if you don't start operating and walking in forgiveness. And it's such a tough situation because, they are people who God love, regardless of if we like them or not. So it's something in knowing that, yes, I went through this. Yes, this person did this to me, but is this situation bigger than God not forgiving me? And when you put it into that perspective, it's not worth eternity. It just isn't. And there's so many ways to overcome and heal now. We don't have to be like our grandmamas and then when they held on to things and they tuck it, they hid it. It's under the mattress, baby. And you better
Listen,
not bring it.
you bet you don't take that out my house.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we're in a space where we're open about therapy. We're open about psychologists and dealing with counselors to make sure we get the healing that we need. And I believe it marries because it frees us. Because
Woo.
forgiveness really frees us. It's not really about the other person. It's about you and you accepting that, yes, this did happen, but because God is in me, I am bigger than what happened to me.
Woo. So I feel like when I think about this idea of forgiveness, because I know for a lot of people, that's a really hard thing. I actually always have felt like I have a gift of forgiveness. Like it's really hard for me to hold stuff, hold things against people. And for me, most often, I generally always will put myself into other people's, like put their shoe on, so to speak. And I can always think about a time where maybe I said something about somebody, maybe I was just quick at the tongue and I wish I could take that word back. And I can always think about, man, I just wish that don't get back to them, or, that I could take that word back. And if I have been in a position where I needed forgiveness, then so do I want somebody to be able to do the same for me. And so I think that's one of the ways that has helped me. Just remember, I haven't been perfect and I have stood in the need of forgiveness and wanted to be able to give what I have been in need of so many times. Now, we talked about another part of this idea of us getting to the place where we are going to therapy and we've lived through something, but it doesn't have to become who we are. I really do believe that many people go to therapy, but they still want to use trauma as their security blanket. Like, yeah, I went to therapy and I've named the thing that I've gone through, but you can't necessarily say you've gone through it if you're not actually using the process of going to therapy to actually heal. I think so many of us get stuck in a place where it's like, okay, my daddy left, and I'm not trying to be cavalier about it, because we've lived through some hard stuff. But at some point, if we're going to say we lived through it, we actually have to get beyond it to tell the testimony. Get to paradise. You can't live in the paramedics the rest of your life. So can you talk about some steps or even some things that have helped you practically of not getting stuck at like waving the banner of my trauma, but getting beyond the trauma for it to become testimony?
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of people go to therapy and they lie to their therapist and expect to be healed.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Like that is just not going to work for you if you go there and you lie, you're not honest. It's the same way. God cannot release you for something if you don't release it. And you know what I realized? I was in this situation, and I'm gonna get to your question too, but I was in a situation and I remember coming home and I said, God, I don't want this anymore. And you know what he told me? He said, I already released it off of you, but your pride is holding on to it.
Whoa.
When I tell you, I was like, oh wait, did you just cut my neck? Because I feel like you just got me in the throat. But if we don't release it, he's unable to release it from us. He's already taken it, but if we don't give it, it's just going to stay there. And I think that's one of the things I had to realize with the miscarriage, with the postpartum depression, with the suicidal thoughts, with the anxiety, with the regular depression, with so many other acts of trauma in my life, the rejection issues, all those different things. I had to release it because this is not who I am. At my core, this is not me, but this is what the enemy has placed on me, and I've accepted it, so this is who I become. Now, I have to be big enough to say, I may not like this person, but this is who I am right now. But this is not who I will be always. So I had to make a decision to give it away. I had to give it to God. I had to be honest with my therapist. I had to be honest with the people that were around me, including my husband. Hey, I didn't realize I dealt with rejection issues growing up. Now married, what do you think I was dealing with? And all marriage does is highlight,
amplify
who you really are. And people, singles, be like, girl, I'm gonna get married, everything gonna be all right. All right, well, if you didn't heal from that little childhood trauma, all it is going to do is bring out everything, and it's going to highlight it. So it is healing through the pain of it, and knowing again, it is a season. And if I know that God has created me far beyond this person, I know she's worth fighting for. And I had to get that in my mind that, Brelyn, regardless of what you've dealt with, you are worth the fight. You are worth it.
Amen.
Your life, your purpose, your assignment, your children. My children will not know their mother committed suicide. I'm sorry. That it's just not my legacy. That's just not what I'm
Woo!
leaving. So I had to make decisions, hardcore decisions that hurt, because it's
Yeah.
real easy to say I'm depressed and not do nothing. Real easy. But then when you realize all you eat is McDonald's and ice cream every day, maybe that's why you're depressed. You're not getting no fruits and vegetables.
Do something different.
So you have to you have to make the hard decisions that are uncomfortable, but know that you are worth fighting for.
I love it. You brought into this thing, this idea of sometimes how we can allow what happened to us to become us, right? And we slap these labels on us. So maybe we were promiscuous in a season of our life. And so we call ourselves a whore for the rest of our life. Or maybe we have dealt with a miscarriage and we call ourselves a miscarriager. Or we've had a divorce and so we become the divorcee. Can you talk about how life can happen to you, but it doesn't have to become who you are? How can we remove these labels that we've lived through and not become the thing that we've lived through, to live beyond it, to actually be who God actually called us to be, which is a daughter, not an orphan, to be a son, not just this, God has already, lived out here and sold his oaks, all these things that we have, experienced in the different seasons of our life. But many times we carry them still as a badge. I'm the one that's dealing with depression, or I'm the anxious one. You can deal with anxiety. You don't have to be the anxious one, meaning that's your person. Talk about that.
Yeah, the first thing I heard was, "You put your name on me."
Hey.
Like literally, God put his name on you. And whenever you're associated to someone who has a good name, you always want to take their name.
Woo!
And when I realized that God's name was better than the names I was giving myself, I decided that I'm not going to be an orphan anymore, but I'm going to be a daughter. He calls me daughter, and that's why I never really agreed with the AA, because they always say my name is so and so and I'm an alcoholic. Well, you haven't had
Brelyn,
a drink
I
in
never
20
thought
years.
about that.
So you're
That's
still
heavy.
calling yourself an alcoholic, but you haven't had a drink in 20 years. Well, you know what you're doing? You're speaking to your future that I'm not an alcoholic right now, but maybe if something else comes my way, that word that I spoke over my own life is going to come back at the time that the enemy wants it to. And I had to stop saying my anxiety, my fear, my depression. This is mine. This, because it's harder to get rid of when you take ownership.
Something that you own.
So it's when you own that thing, it is so much harder. So I had to decide that God's name was better. The name that he chose for me was better. Allow him to change your name. But that is being exposed to his name. You can't take on a new name if you're not exposed to a new name.
Jesus.
And it's getting in his word. What does he call you? Well, he calls you fearfully and wonderfully made. What does that look like? You are a royal priesthood. You are a child of God. Like, what does that look like? What does my new name look like? What does my new family look like? So I'm able to take ownership of the proper name. So I'm not calling myself an alcoholic or being promiscuous or any of those things 10 years later, and that's not who I am anymore. So it's taking on a new name and knowing that God really did put his name on you.
Man, he put his name on me. I love it. I love it. And I do understand the principle of what they're going for in the Alcoholics Anonymous. Many people aren't honest about what they've dealt with. And it's a different thing to say and be honest about what I dealt with rather than making it your identity. I love that. I think this conversation has been phenomenal. Before I let you go, I need this one thing from you, because I know you're a woman that prays and you're prophetic. What's your secret sauce for the season? It can be about anything. Just what is the Lord talking about? What he's saying? What's the word right now?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked, because, in March, he told me that he would restore everything as if I've never lost it. And Jesus. I was like, yes, this is so good. Like, thank you, God, because I have been through hell the last 3 years. And when I tell you March was the start of like a downhill for me, I said, God, you said that you was going to restore me like it never happened, but things are happening. And he said, well, I didn't say now. He said that I was. And when I realized that word that he gave me was to keep me through the season I was about to go through, not the season I was in. It was for the season that I was about to go through. And that has really been keeping me, because I woke up the other day, September 2nd, I'll never forget, and I heard that you've just entered into the restored promise season. Baby, I said, let's go. Let's go. And I think right now,
hey, I receive it.
Okay, receive that, because he's saying that it's not that you don't start working. It's not that you don't start putting your hands to the plow. It's just that we have the opportunity to pull on everything that he has ever promised us right now. We are in that season. So I believe that this is the time for believers, women in particular. I believe that we are about to see some amazing signs, miracles, and wonders happen. And I just know that the Lord is in a place where he wants the church to wake up. We have to wake up and know that it is our time. It is our season. We cannot be afraid to go after what he has promised us, but we have to go wholeheartedly. So yes, you may be in a trauma situation and need a paramedic, but I promise you, if you tap in and press in a little bit more, you're going to fulfill every single assignment, and you'll see the paradise that God has promised you.
You better work, woman of God. You better work this title. I love it. This talk was absolutely phenomenal. Oh my God, I've been so blessed, and I know that every woman watching will be blessed and encouraged that what they've gone through doesn't have to dictate what they presently are, who they see themselves as, that they're valuable, that they got a name that they can put on them, and even understanding that seasons change and that the restoring season is upon us. And I pray that every person watching receives that. This has been amazing, sis. I love you. You got something else? I thought you were.
No, I was just saying I'm in agreement.
Amen. Amen. I love you. I'll see you soon, baby.
I love you. See ya.
Okay. Bye-bye. Hey, family. Just finished shooting with Brelyn Bowman. From paramedics to paradise. We are wanting your trauma to go to a place of testimony and just get into a place of ministry where God is able to work for your good, that thing that he promises. And I want to give you an activation. One thing that Brelyn and I talked a lot about was that seasons change. And I think that many times we really get to the place where we identify ourselves by what we have experienced. I don't even want to say live through, because many times we get so blocked by what we've experienced that we never get to the point of living through it. My challenge to you will be, get you a therapist or even find you a safe confidant to really share about maybe what you've experienced in the past or what you might be experiencing right now. But being honest is the key, and not necessarily labeling yourself like, because you've gone through promiscuity, that you are actually that. Maybe you did that because there was a deeper root of some abandonment issue or rejection. I'm saying get to the root of calling it abandonment issues and rejection, not just a fruit of I've been out here in these people's bed, right? So we want to really get to the heart of the matter. I want you to share honestly with somebody about where you are so that you can get through the thing that you experience to the next side of paradise. I love you. I hope this helps. Bye. Something that came up as we were just talking, I can say for myself particularly, and I think it's due to trauma. I don't know the source of it, but I can say that I've done it over time. For a long time, I couldn't speak up for me. I couldn't say, and even if it wasn't trauma, so to speak, but just like, I don't want to do that. Or I actually need this for my particular bent. And I know you're this way, but my ability to speak up for myself, I think has been a part of something that has alleviated me dealing with continuous trauma in this particular season of my life. Like, I can just say, for instance, I can openly share this. I shared this with Travis before. I remember for a long time, it was easy for me to say, like, your children need you and I need you to show up, like, as he was busy on the road. But it was very hard to say that I need you, because I felt like it was adding another weight to his life. And I know for women, that can be a real thing. Like, I don't want to be needy. And that's not being needy. And I had to learn that. Like, needing your husband is actually something that is normal and healthy. So being willing to offer that up and being honest and not stuffing that away, that need to, be needed or, or have somebody be present for you is a good thing. And I've just seen in my life, I'm getting better with being able to communicate to not even just husbands, but like to my friends, like, hey, I need you to check on me sometimes, or I need you to care if I'm sick or whatever. It has made me so much more of a healthy person. And I think in the space of where I would have generally lived in trauma, like nobody checking for me or whatever that case may be. So
what made you start that? Because that's something that I do actively like struggle with, is like speaking up for myself, because I try to talk myself out of why I need to say something.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't feel like
I used to say stuff like, "Oh, I can handle it. Or I can take it to the Lord."
Yes.
And he started challenging me, like, "You did bring this to me, but I'm also asking you to be brave enough to take it to the person that you need it from." I also saw how it was affecting my heart. So sometimes I would feel like, if I was going through something, like, they not gonna care, and that actually, like, I don't know. I think I started to feel like that was unfair, because I wasn't being fair to the person, because I wasn't ever communicating that them not showing up in this certain way was affecting me. So I felt like I could at least do the service of letting them know how it was making me feel before I come to the conclusion that they don't care, So yeah, I think that's kind of how I didn't like the results it was producing. It wasn't producing goodness in my heart. And sometimes it would make me live isolated or sad or down when I could just be honest.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful.
And I found too, when you bring your honest emotions, not in hostility, people really respect it. Like, telling people like, that make me sad, or this makes me feel a certain way, people can respect, like, this is where I ain't, like, you ain't trying to beat them up, like, but to be honest or vulnerable enough and trusting enough with somebody to share your real heart really endears people.
Yeah. I pray that you enjoyed today's episode. It was absolutely amazing. But what you just watched was something we like to call Let's Talk About It. Myself, PJ, and Keisha, we sit down after every episode and deep dive into what happened and really talk about the real stuff that we didn't get to talk about inside of the episode. And this content is only available inside of Permission World. So what you have to do in order to watch a full episode, you have to join the app. There's information on the screen right now. There's information in the description box. Make sure you jump in on the app. Speaking of which, don't click off yet. I want to show you a testimony of someone inside of Permission World already and how it's impacted her life. Check this out.
My overall journey to permission started this year in 2023. After attending Forward City regularly and hearing about permission and going to Permission Conference, I finally got into Permission World and then applied for Permission Room and was accepted. And that's when I started using the Permission app. I will say that I've come to understand that permission is not just about daughterhood, but it's also about sisterhood. And the app has truly helped me not only gain sisters, but stay connected to the community that I've built through Permission Room and just in general by having the app. So definitely the app has helped with that. The app also has helped kind of keep me focused and on track. So I love that at any point during the day, I can just get on the app. If I'm having a bad day or feeling anxious or anything, I can just get in the app and see all the things that my sisters are posting and sharing and the inspiration and all of that. So I love having access to my community, my tribe at the tip of my fingers. So Permission app has definitely helped and jump-started a change in my life forever.
I want everything he has for me.